So we are a hybrid supply chain consulting firm. We have a proprietary software platform that shortens the time needed to really create your main procurement analyses from around 6 months down to about 3 days. But again, all this information is worthless unless you know what to do with it. So we pair that with a team of really seasoned professionals who go in and try to upskill our clients and bring them forward. The other thing I should probably touch on, we target mid-market companies, sub 1 billion in size. Those are those guys who used to start mom and pop shops. They've grown rapidly. They're really successful in their niche, but now they're running into all these issues that your corporate giants have. But they don't have the resources or their expertise on, they can't go spend $5 million on a data science team every year. So we target them and try to help the little guy fight more effectively. It was a friend's family. Before I got into all this, I drove race cars. Not sure how it came about. The guy who owned it decided to start a bakery near where we were all based, and he asked me to run it front end. They wanted a bakery and have donuts and all that, I guess, but didn't actually want to have to deal with the business side of it. And at the time, I was still in my undergrad, and I'd never done anything like that before. And unfortunately, we were running in the red for a long time. We were just burning cash. So it started really simple models of forecasting and figuring out, hey, we shouldn't stay open late, past like 2 p.m. on Mondays, or we should close entirely, and how to staff and really how much product we should make every day. And once those, let's say, big problems, but in a lot of ways simple ones to solve, were gone, it came down to a lot of times, what are your unit costs? So we tried to reduce that, but what it kept running into was, we're a really small player, or I should say we were a really small player, and the baker's gone now, but and our food suppliers, US Foods and Don Foods, were significantly larger. And every week they'd come with their truck, they'd open up and say, hey, you bought this last week, do you need more flour, do you need more whatever? And they changed their price every week on me. So I tried I did a lot of Googling and tried, the whole procurement playbook of how to negotiate. That doesn't work when you're a very small fish. So then I started looking to what does flour actually cost? What can I find in broad market data? What does flour cost? So they bring it to them. I come in with some printouts. Hey, you're telling me your flour's gone up, 3%. It's really funny because according to the New York Stock Exchange and London Commodities Exchange, that's down 10. I'm not good at math, but that doesn't seem to be the same. Maybe the first couple times it's not very effective, but always you start making people feel guilty because you're calling them out on their BS. I then went to Newell Rubbermaid after that. I got an internship there, and that turned into a great start of my career. And find out if I got the internship because of this story I just told you. It's the career fair telling them, but I was like, I'm going to learn all these new things, and I did. But what I found is they had the exact same problems as that bakery. They were $8 billion and then $12 billion company. They had the same problems, and it kind of clicked for me. If they're having those problems, small companies having problems. Maybe Pepsi or Coca-Cola, maybe they're not, but the vast majority of business owners are. Starting from a small company, I'm very, let's say, I've got a bias to the smaller guy. I was like, if I can try to find a way to bring all these tools I've developed at the bakery, then developed at Newell, and bring them into one platform, maybe I can make it a fair fight. Great question. We try our best to resource plan for the future. So we go about that fairly regularly, but the thing is we can't control when projects hit, when clients hit. Can't control when one of our clients had a bad ransomware attack. Just this past February. Sorry, it seems longer than that now. That completely shut them down for 3 months. They had to blow every bridge worldwide. They're a $2 billion company, blew every single data connection worldwide. Executive leadership didn't have emails for a month and a half. And so our reaction was, all right, we're going to throw extra hands onto the problem for them. It led to a lot of late nights. Probably didn't make my wife very happy. But what it did do is allow them to navigate even just a little bit better through the really hard event, and engender that sense of solidarity and trust and credibility with them, to this point now that they're asking for things that it's like, yeah, you gotta give me like 6 months to staff up if we're gonna do that. Analogy I used to use, and I've moved away from it because I don't think it hits as well, is driving a car. You're bringing in a ton of information constantly from your eyes, your ears, maybe a navigation unit or what have you. Maybe you got Waze going, and you might know, hey, I'm going to go here. Well, subconsciously, you're making tens of thousands of decisions every moment. That's just a noodle loop. It's just one that's instinctual to us because we grew up crawling, walking, running. So, moving a body like that is just kind of natural. And I think, if we can get our business decisions, or let's say just our non-natural decision making, closer to that, we'll be all the better for it. I think it's a lot in how you approach it, in your language. Most of our business partners aren't analytics people. They're either former engineers or they're sales leaders or they're what have you. I don't expect them to be able to fully understand, some of our algorithms by any means. But what I found to be effective is if I talk to them in some ways almost like they do know it, not in like a condescending way or oh, you already know how this is going, but I talk to them like I would just how we're talking. That's going to help build that trust. And then the other part, the second part, and then really that humble part is, there's been times when I was like, this is, there's so many data points pointing to the exact same thing. This is the right decision. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. If I present it that way, though, I'm going to come off as like, I know more than them. That I can I can do their job better than them. Even though it's only one decision, that is how they're going to internally take it. Whereas if I approach them like, hey, borrow your name, that's okay, David. This is what I'm seeing. This is what it's showing us. This is why I think it's real. What do you think? How does this fit in with those past experiences? What do you think could be some of the potential issues? What do you think could go wrong? And by bringing them into it, it takes them from that side of the table to they're on this side of the table and we're looking at the same thing. And then obviously, to kind of bring that to the finish line and let's say get repeat successes with those people is when it, that project or decision or whatever ends up being successful. To be fine, just kind of fading into the background. Let them take center stage, letting them be, a Caesar on a triumphant parade through Rome. They're going to then come back to you.